They were on the verge of becoming iconic rappers. Instead, their lives ended in ways so dumb, so random, they feel almost accidental. Let's start with deaths that didn't involve rivals, money, or fame, and slowly work our way toward the ones that ended in the most shocking way. Number 7. James Jimmy Patterson. On August 14, 2017, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, James Jimmy Patterson, a 22-year-old rapper from Riverhead, New York, was inside an apartment, sitting on a couch and eating an egg roll. There was no argument taking place. Nothing was unusual. According to police, a man named Israel Trejo entered the apartment that evening to purchase an axe from another individual who was present there. Patterson was not involved in the transaction. Strangely, the two men did not know each other and never spoke. Trejo remained inside the apartment for several minutes. During that time, he held the axe. Then, without warning, Trejo swung it, striking Patterson in the head while Patterson was relaxing on the couch. Trejo immediately fled the scene. Patterson was rushed to the hospital with the axe still lodged in his head. Surgeons attempted to save him. On August 17, 2017, 3 days later, Patterson died from his injuries. Trejo was arrested shortly after and later charged with first-degree murder. The axe was recovered by police. The transaction it was brought for never took place, and the only person not involved in the sale was the one who did not survive it. But the next rapper death does not make sense at all. Number 6. Magnolia Shorty. On December 20th, 2010, in New Orleans East, Renetta Yamika Lowe Bridgewater, known professionally as Magnolia Shorty, was returning to her apartment to retrieve something before leaving town. She was scheduled to travel to Miami later that day to perform at a bounce festival. Magnolia Shorty was not an unknown figure. She had been one of the first women signed to Cash Money Records, released the bounce classic Monkey on the $CK, and was widely referred to as the Queen of Bounce. She had spent more than a decade collaborating with Cash Money artists and was actively working on new music in 2010. As she entered the gated parking lot of her apartment complex, another vehicle followed her through the gate. The second car circled, cut in front of her vehicle, and blocked her in. Two men exited the car. They did not speak or attempt a robbery. Instead, they opened fire through the windows. Magnolia Shorty was shot 26 times and died inside her car. A man with her, Jerome Hampton, was also killed. Police described the incident as a drive-by shooting carried out at close range. The shooting happened inside a gated complex, moments after she arrived home. Her funeral was held 10 days later in New Orleans, attended by dozens of artists. In 2014, a federal investigation tied the killing to gang violence. In 2017, multiple defendants were convicted, including 2 for her murder. She was preparing to leave for a show. Instead, she never made it past the gate. Number 5. Pop Smoke. On February 19, 2020, Bashar Baraka Jackson, known as Pop Smoke, was staying in a rented home in Hollywood Hills, California. The house had been booked through Airbnb. He was 20 years old and visiting Los Angeles while his music was breaking nationally. The night before, he had posted photos online: gift bags, jewelry, boxes. One photo showed the house address clearly printed on the label. The post was public. At around 4:30 a.m., 5 hooded intruders climbed onto a second-story balcony and entered the house. One of them carried a handgun. Inside, they moved room to room and confronted a woman and threatened her. Police later said Jackson was shot multiple times during the attack. The intruders fled the house immediately. The Los Angeles Police Department received the first report from a call placed on the East Coast, not from inside the home. Officers arrived within minutes and found Jackson with gunshot wounds. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors attempted emergency surgery. He died a few hours later. The cause was a gunshot wound to the chest. Early on, investigators considered gang ties. That theory changed. Police later determined the killing was a robbery gone wrong. The intruders stole Jackson's diamond-studded Rolex and jewelry, later selling the watch for about $2,000. In recorded statements, one of the juveniles admitted the plan was to rob him after locating the address through social media. Arrests followed months later. In February 2025, One defendant received a 29-year sentence, while others accepted plea deals. After his death, his music albums climbed the charts, but he was not there to celebrate. Number 4. DJ Scott LaRock, August 27, 1987. Bronx, New York. Scott Monroe. Sterling, known as DJ Scott LaRock, was 25 years old. He was a social worker, a DJ, and a founding member of Boogie Down Productions. Weeks earlier, the group released Criminal Minded, an album already gaining attention across New York. Earlier that day, D-Nice was assaulted by men angry over an ex-girlfriend. Scott stepped in to calm down the situation. It should have stopped there, but it escalated. Later that same day, Scott returned to the Highbridge projects with D-Nice and others. They rode in a Jeep without security or weapons. There was absolutely no reason to believe something dangerous was happening. As they drove away, shots were fired into the vehicle. Bullets went through the side and roof. Scott hit his head on the dashboard. He did not realize he had been shot in the back of the head. He was rushed to Lincoln Hospital while he was still conscious. He spoke to doctors. He said he felt cold and tired. He went into a coma. Doctors failed to save him. He was declared brain dead. His mother eventually removed life support. 2 men were arrested for the murder. Both were acquitted. Hip-hop's first major artist death did not come from a feud or fame. It was over a dumb argument about someone's ex-girlfriend. Number 3. Takeoff. November 1st, 2022. Houston, Texas. Kersnick. Kari Ball, known as Takeoff, was killed outside 810 Billiards and bowling after a private party ended shortly after 1 a.m. He was there with his uncle and groupmate, Quavo. Around 40 people gathered outside the third-floor entrance. A dice game turned loud. Then it turned stupid. Takeoff was not arguing, nor was he armed. He was just standing nearby while others talked money. But the strangest part is that nobody left. Soon the argument got heated, guns came out, and shots were fired into a crowded space. Takeoff was hit multiple times in the head and torso. He collapsed immediately. A nearby nurse ran to help, but he was already dead. 2 others were injured and rushed away in private vehicles. Police arrived at 2:50 a.m. and classified the scene as a homicide. Investigators later said Takeoff was likely not the intended target. He died from a stray bullet. Patrick Xavier Clark was arrested and charged with murder, then released on a $1 million bond. A grand jury later indicted him. If convicted, he faces life in prison there. What makes this death stick is the timing. Takeoff had just released a joint album with Quavo days earlier. He built 4 albums with Migos. And yet, he died over a dice game he was not even part of. Number 2. Mohbad. September 12, 2023. Lagos, Nigeria. Mohbad, born Ilerioluwa Oladimeji Aloba, was 27 years old and one of Nigeria's fast-rising Afrobeats rappers. 2 days earlier, on September 10th, after a show in Ikorodu, Mohbad got into a violent argument with his childhood friend and fellow artist, Primeboy. Mohbad swung first and missed. His fist smashed into a car window and glass tore into his hand, leaving a deep open cut. The injury was left untreated. Over the next 48 hours, the wound swelled badly and pain became unbearable. But instead of going to a hospital, a nursing assistant named Feisayo Ogadengbe was called to his house. Shockingly, she was not a licensed nurse. She injected Mohbad with 3 different drugs, including what was believed to be a tetanus shot and pain medication. Minutes later, his body reacted violently. He began vomiting and convulsing. Then seizures started. By the time they rushed him to the hospital, it was too late. Mohbad was announced dead in the early hours of September 12th. The strangest part is that a preventable hand injury turned fatal because unqualified medical treatment was trusted inside a living room. Police later confirmed the nurse was not authorized to administer injections. She was arrested. Primeboy was arrested. Another friend who invited the nurse was detained for conspiracy. Mohbad was buried the next day. What followed was chaos. Protests erupted across Nigeria under the hashtag Justice for Mohbad. Fans accused his former label, Marley and Music, of bullying and intimidation. Names like Naira Marley and Sam Larry were dragged into public suspicion. An autopsy was ordered. A coroner's inquest opened. But the body's condition after burial made answers difficult. In the end, a missed punch, a swollen hand, and a bad decision ended his life. But the dumbest death recorded in history is this. Number 1. Prodigy. June 20th, 2017. Las Vegas, Nevada. Albert Johnson, known to the world as Prodigy, was 42 years old. He was one half of Mobb Deep, a group that helped shape East Coast gangsta rap. Alongside Havoc, he released albums that became street classics. Songs like Shook Ones, Part 2, and Quiet Storm turned Mobb Deep into a permanent name in hip-hop history. From birth, Prodigy lived with sickle cell anemia. The disease deforms red blood cells and causes extreme pain, weakness, and organ stress. Heat is one of its biggest triggers. On that night, Prodigy performed at an outdoor hip-hop festival in Las Vegas. The temperature was high. Soon after the show, his body shut down. He was taken to a hospital and admitted for sickle cell complications. This was not unusual, as he had been hospitalized many times before. He was awake and talking. But the dumbest part is what happened next. While lying in a hospital bed, Prodigy was eating. He was served eggs. His body was weak. His reflexes were slow. No one was closely watching him. A piece of egg became lodged in his throat and began choking him. Doctors and nurses tried to help, but it was too late. Oxygen was cut off to his brain, and he died in the hospital from accidental choking. Later reports confirmed the shocking cause of death, food blocking his airway. After surviving decades of pain and illness, Prodigy did not die on stage or from sickle cell itself. He died from breakfast.